I have a different school of thought. A lot of people come to me and say, oh, let's put solar on the house and get my energy bills down. But the ROI, or your return on your investment for
Mm-hmm.
that, is
Mm-hmm.
6 to 8.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes folks aren't in their home that long. They may get transferred from a job, etc., that doesn't allow them to see that return on their investment.
Mm-hmm.
There are many things inside a home that you could focus on before we even get to solar. And some of these things, the ROI is in like 6 months.
Welcome to Home Green Homes Podcast. I am Izumi Tanaka, a green home advisor and a green realtor. Here I invite a variety of experts in the world of green homes and have conversations about how we can all live in healthy, resilient, and efficient homes. My guests provide insight in a wide range of topics, from designing, building, and living in green homes, purchasing or financing green homes and improvements, to how we can live to reduce the negative environmental impact from the way we live. My goal is to inspire and inform you about how we can make a difference in our own lives and our environment. So hello, this is Izumi Tanaka with Home Green Homes. Today I have Carl Reese. He is with CR Environmental, and I'm going to let him tell us more about who he is, what he does. Carl, thank you so much for coming here today, and I'm so grateful to have you. And can you please tell us about yourself and what you do?
Thank you for the invite, Azumi. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to your viewers on energy efficiency. I'm a general contractor, licensed general contractor here in Southern California for the last 23 years. I also am a NASHI home inspector. That probably doesn't mean much to your viewers, but it's the world's largest organization of home inspectors. Um, they have very high standards for who they allow to be in their organization as far as your background and your continued education. And then building on top of that, we also do environmental, which is mold, lead, and asbestos abatement. And I'm a certified HAZWOPER for OSHA. So
Mhm.
we're licensed to disperse chemicals and cleaning for sanitization, things like that, category 3 leaks, plumbing leaks, etc. And we've been doing mold for years and years. But I also, one of the hats I wear is years and years ago, I was a certified Energy Star energy auditor.
Mhm.
And when Barack Obama took office, they made some changes where they were going to primarily focus on industrial buildings and commercial buildings rather than residential. And because most of my business is residential,
Mhm.
those certifications fell away for me as an opportunity to do energy audits in homes. Prior to that, the leadership was really interested in getting homes up to energy standards. A lot of people don't realize the money they lose out of their monthly budget in energy. So I jumped in with both feet because a lot of people were complaining about the tiered electrical system, and I'm sure we'll get into that today. But
Mhm.
that's a little background on me.
Okay, thank you so much. And you have tons of qualifications that we can go to all kinds of different topics here. But today I wanted to focus on the energy audit that you provide. And one of the reasons why I invited you is because you had our home inspected for energy efficiency. And I am interested in having you talk about more about the value or why I have the energy audit and why it's beneficial. And so can you I know energy audit is just one of the many things that you do, but since we're going to be talking more about this, if you can please explain what energy audit is and what it involves.
Yeah, absolutely. Most people, when they hear audit, they panic. You think
Right.
IRS audit. But in this case, an audit's a good thing to have on your
Yeah.
home,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you're concerned with your electric bills in the home and the energy bills.
Mm-hmm.
And that's usually the first point of contact. Somebody's contacting my office to come out and look at their home
Mm-hmm.
in the in the perspective of a contractor, looking at the home and not critiquing the home as far as the wear and tear like a home inspection, but we're more primarily focused on where is the energy leaking from the home.
Mm.
And I have a different school of thought. A lot of people come to me and say, oh, let's put solar on the house and get my energy bills down. But the ROI, or your return on your investment for that, is 6 to 8.5 years.
Mm.
And sometimes folks aren't in their home that long. They may get transferred from a job, et cetera, that doesn't allow them to see that return on their investment. There are many things inside a home that you could focus on before we even get to solar. And some of these things, the ROI is in like 6 months. For an example, when I walk through a home, I tend to look at the light bulbs in the house, not because I'm a light bulb salesman, but because if you switch to LED lighting, you'll find that your energy usage will drop about a quarter of what you're paying now, especially if you're in tier 2 or tier 3 in the payment system for Southern California Edison, which is our electric provider on Pine Mountain Club. So usually I like to say, hey, you have 153 bulbs in this house. It's a 3,000 square foot house, and you really should take all these bulbs and throw them away. Don't even wait for them to burn out, because if you wait for those bulbs to burn out, you're losing out on the return on the investment.
Right.
The second thing that I look at when I walk through the home is I get in through the attic space and measure the amount of insulation. Most homeowners never step foot in their attic only to get their Christmas decorations out and
Right.
take them down. But as a builder, the codes have changed through the years. When the homes were built in Pine Mountain Club in the 70s, the energy codes were almost non-existent. And they had very little insulation. And the builder usually only puts what's required by the county or the state to put in the home. And they don't put an inch above that. But if you improve that insulation on the home, you'll find that your electric bills or your air conditioning bills will be much less. I use the analogy, it's like putting coffee in a drinking glass or putting it in a thermos. If you put it in a drinking glass, your coffee is going to get cold right away, and you're heating your home either with wood or propane or natural gas. And if you don't have proper insulation, that energy is being lost through the ceiling and out through the building envelope. If you put it in a thermos, which is akin to having 2 layers of insulation, your house is going to stay much cozier. You're going to eliminate some of those drafts. You're going to eliminate cold pockets and cold rooms because the warm air and energy will be more dispersed through the home. And adding insulation isn't a substantial cost. Next to light bulbs, it's probably the second cheapest thing that you can do to your home. And most homeowners could do it on the weekend themselves.
Yeah. Okay. So let me show you the little video that I got when you did inspection and see what you said. Okay. Let me share screen. Here we go.
Carl, tell me what you found in our house today.
So of a house this age, there's typical things that we see from home to home. Generally, we see leaking ductwork in the attic or in the crawl space, because when these homes were built, a 24% leakage was a pass. Today, you have to have less than 8% on new construction and 6% leakage on a retrofit. So if you think of a straw that has a hole in it, it's not very efficient. And so if your ducts aren't sealed where they make a mechanical connection to either your furnace or to the register vent that comes into the room, if it's leaking around there, then your conditioned air that you're making that hot air in the wintertime is not coming into the home. It's being lost in the crawl space or the attic. Traditionally, that's the number one thing that we see in a lot of homes. There is some air leakage that's consistent with a home that was built in this era. And I recommend caulking and sealing those air leaks.
Okay.
So that's what this was a couple of years ago. So your beard.
Who is that young, good-looking guy?
Yeah. So
My house is 2005, so it's relatively new in this community. There's a lot of homes around here that were built in the 70s and 80s. And I know that when we're saying energy audit, I think these days they also are starting to call an efficient energy efficiency home performance evaluation. Is that what they
Yes,
call it?
yes.
Yeah, so I think they're kind of changing the verbiage a little bit to sound a little bit, I don't know, friendly or something, as opposed to audit, like you said. It could be a little bit startling. So yeah, tell us about some of the things that you found that typically in this house, and you know what the results will be. Like you said ROI, but some of the ROI is just, not just the energy bill, but the air quality inside, and some of the other things that can improve in the house.
Sure, sure. Like the video just mentioned, when we're in the attic looking at the insulation depth,
Mhm.
we're also looking at that ductwork that flows through the attic.
Right.
And today the ducts are have better insulation, but
Mm-hmm.
the homeowner doesn't have to start there. You can look for gaps or leaks in
Mm-hmm.
the insulation or in the ductwork rather. And if you seal those up, you're going to get more air circulation through the house. It will
Mm-hmm.
be better air quality because you don't want insulation being mixed in with your fresh breathing air or the conditioned air in the home.
Right.
Um, we, I think people need to start at where do we want to save money? Is it most homeowners don't approach me and say, okay, we want a new furnace and we want a new solar and we want new.
Mm-hmm.
You would be better off for a return on your investment to talk to a realtor about looking at a newer home
Right.
that falls under new energy codes than retrofitting.
Right.
But don't give up hope. Don't turn off the video yet. You should really look
Mhm.
at changing out the bulbs because honestly, it will drop your electric rate by about 1/4% on the average home of say 1,200 square foot or larger.
Mhm.
Just that alone will bring you out of those higher, more expensive tiers down to the
Right.
21 cents a kilowatt or down to 17 cents a kilowatt.
Mhm.
If you look at your bill, you are paying on a tiered system. The more you use, the more you get punished. And lighting is the single source for the most energy loss in a home. The second is refrigeration. So
Mhm.
we often see clients that have two refrigerators, one in the garage, one in the main home, and the one
Uh-huh.
in the garage is absolutely empty.
Right.
That second refrigerator, especially if it was built in the early 90s,
Mhm.
is really using a lot of electricity. If it's older than 1990, you should throw it away.
Mhm.
The newer refrigerators use less than a 75-watt light
Mhm.
bulb. They're
Mhm.
on new refrigerant, etc.
Mhm.
So let's back up to air quality. How can we find some of these leaks?
Mhm.
Uh, some of the tattletale signs are you'll see dirty insulation wrapped around the duct where air is being pulled through the insulation and it's trapping attic dust. So
Right.
it'll look like it has a stain on it.
Mhm.
As a contractor, that's something that will catch your eye. If you
Mhm.
pull that insulation back a little bit, you'll see gaps in the mechanical connections where one piece fits into the next. If you can stick your finger through it, then you're really losing a lot of the energy. And back in the 70s, when some of our homes were built, those kinds of leaks were okay because we were only paying 10 cents a kilowatt, but we don't pay 10 cents anymore. Some homes pay 31 cents a kilowatt.
Yes. Yes.
So Lowe's, Home Depot, your average store, you can get a bucket of duct sealant. It's like
Mm.
a paste that comes in a 1-gallon bucket and you paint it on with a paintbrush. And you could
Right.
go through your attic on a Saturday and
Mm.
seal these leaks up, improve your air quality, improve the comfort of your home without changing the furnace. And it's a small investment, maybe less than $25 all
Mhm.
in. That's the brush, a pair of gloves, and the duct sealant.
Yeah. And
So if you notice a lot of dust in your home, you
Mhm.
usually have leaking ductwork. If you're dusting every week and seeing a lot of dust, you sneeze a lot when you're home, you should
Mhm.
have somebody that's an HVAC professional or an energy auditor come out and take a look at the ductwork in
Right.
the home.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in the beginning, you said that, mentioned about, that you have a different school of thought that, having solar is not necessarily the answer. And I'm kind of on the same wavelength, because a lot of people rush to get the solar panels on without getting your home itself
In
audited.
order.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And I always tell people, and it's really interesting that maybe because of the solar panel industry really trying to sell, but I don't hear about, you should get your insulation done before you put the solar panel, because otherwise you're just wasting a lot of energy that you're creating, right? You're generating. Yeah. And so can you speak to that? Like, like you said, ROI, you're better off getting your insulation done, your air leaks sealed before you even consider putting on the panel. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Most of the investors that I work for that own, rental properties,
Mhm.
etc., they're concerned with getting energy audits done on their rental properties, because if they can keep their tenants' electric bills low, then
Mhm.
those tenants don't struggle to make
Right.
their monthly rent
Yeah.
payments.
Yeah.
So this is a good place to start, and all of my investors are very frugal.
Mm.
They're not necessarily looking at putting solar on their buildings uh, right out of the chute. They're more interested in spending less than a couple $100s to put bulbs in and
Mhm.
get the energy down, and then maybe less than $700-800 to blow some insulation into the attic to make the house super comfortable.
Mhm.
And the furnace will run much less during the winter months.
Right.
It will still run and keep the house really cozy, but it will be longer times before the furnace cycles up.
Right.
And so if we're talking about insulation, we should talk about radiant foil.
Mhm.
It is now required as a building requirement. On the roof, when I build a new home, it
Mhm.
has to have radiant foil already adhered to the plywood that we use for the roof.
Mhm.
And it's essentially industrial tinfoil.
Mhm.
And that foil will repel 97% of the radiant heat
Wow.
that's coming in from the sun. So
Mhm.
in the summertime, when we're trying to keep our houses cool, we
Right.
want to repel that sun's energy
Mhm.
back out into space and not into our attic and make it stuffy and hot.
Mhm.
That's just right out of the chute. That's required now for new homes.
Right.
We can retrofit that foil on the inside of the house.
Mhm.
We staple it to the ceiling of the attic. It
Mhm.
looks like the inside of maybe the space shuttle's trunk.
Mhm.
So it looks super hi-fi or sci-fi on the inside.
Yeah.
But what it's doing is it's lowering your energy bills for the house. It will keep the heat in the wintertime and keep
Mhm.
the heat out
Right.
in summertime. And radiant foil, last we bid it, it was less than $1 a square foot. So if you have a 1,200 square foot house and it's 2-story, you probably have maybe 600-700 square feet of
Mhm.
attic space that needs to be
Mhm.
done.
Right.
And that alone, you'll see probably somewhere between 5 and a 6% increase in energy efficiency in the home by adding that radiant foil. So that's
Yeah.
usually done in conjunction with putting in the insulation.
Right. How about the crawl space? Because we found that our insulation below our floor were falling, and some parts were gone. And isn't that part of the insulation? Yeah.
Yes, yes. So in the building envelope, you have insulation at your crawl space if you're on post and pier, like a lot of the homes are in Pine Mountain Club. Back east, we're on usually basements.
Mhm.
Uh, and then some places in Santa Clarita and other places in Southern California are on a concrete slab foundation.
Mhm.
But if you have a crawl space, yes, it's a good idea to inspect. Once in a while, we'll get animals that will
That's right.
want to pull down some of the insulation. You might get a raccoon or something that might found its way into
Mhm.
the house. So that should be inspected.
Mhm.
And if it's wet or if it's compromised, it should just be thrown away. Insulation is not that expensive to replace 1 or 2 pieces here or there.
Right.
Um, the 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 main thing I would say is that the installation needs to be consistent.
Mm-hmm.
If you have one area that's missing, even if it's a couple feet, that's
Right.
a spot that cold transfer is going to take place. And when you walk on your floor in your kitchen, if you find that it's cold when you walk out there in your bare feet, you might
Right.
want to look in the crawl space and see if
Yeah.
your insulation hasn't fallen down.
Yeah, and this applies to any generally residential properties in Southern California in general, like where it doesn't get as cold as it may in higher elevation, like where we are, or maybe by the ocean where they may get a little bit moisture from the ocean. That apply to other homes as well.
Yes, yes. So if you're living in Southern California and you're not concerned with keeping the heat in, you're looking to cool your home,
Right,
it's the same. Your house is essentially a refrigerator during the summer months, and you're running AC to refrigerate the
right,
interior home to make it comfortable.
yeah.
And the better sealed that energy envelope is,
Mm-hmm,
the lower your energy costs will be over time.
mm-hmm,
And so some of these investments that you make into your home are minor investments. And the way we order them
mm-hmm,
in a energy audit is
mm-hmm.
that we order them in the order of cost. What is the lowest cost? So if let's say we do replace those light bulbs to compact fluorescent, or better yet, LED lighting,
Mm-hmm.
and I spent $300. If my return on my investment is in 6 months,
Mm-hmm.
in 6 months, I earned the $300 back I invested. The next 6 months, I now have $300 to put towards the insulation. So
Yeah.
these things compound like a savings account. And I think people are afraid that they don't immediately see that return, and they think, well, I'm investing into a home that I may not keep long term. But we need to change that thinking a little bit and think of it as a savings account.
Right.
Not only, I recently sold a property that I had. It was a rental unit, and I had gone through the place top to bottom while I lived in the unit,
Mm-hmm.
because I wanted it to be energy efficient for myself. So
Right.
each month my electric bills were much, much less. My
Mm-hmm.
propane costs were much, much less. I put in a on-demand hot water heater,
Mm-hmm.
which saved me a ton. On-demand hot water heater does not burn propane while you're away from the home. It only
Right.
turns on an instant hot water for you when you need it.
Mm.
Now, when I sold that property, I listed all the energy efficient items that I did, making that house more valuable
Mm-hmm.
than the house down the street that's the same comp
Right.
for the same square footage.
Mm-hmm.
My house sold faster because it had those energy improvements,
Mm-hmm.
or I like to think so.
Right. Well, that's a great point. I was going to ask you if your request to have energy audits, are you getting more in the recent years, or is it something that we have to, somebody like myself, I am a green realtor, so I always recommend the buyers to get energy audits done. But do you notice any increase of awareness about the checking on your performance level in your homes?
Sure. So the way we're contacted generally is for a home inspection. Real estate transaction
Right,
is
right.
taking place, and they want a professional to come through and make sure that the home is safe and there's not any unforeseen items,
Mm-hmm.
deficiencies in the home.
Right.
When my office talks to them about that, we tell them that we do a cursory energy audit while we're doing the home inspection. Now, it's not a full audit, but
Mm-hmm.
since I'm in the attic anyways, inspecting the structure and
Right.
I'm looking for deficiencies, if I see that the ductwork is disconnected, or the
Mhm.
ductwork is leaking, or there's evidence that the furnace is at the end of its life cycle, we
Mhm.
mention that to them. And then
Mhm.
we do a follow-up call with the client, and
Mhm.
we go over all the items that came over into home inspection, as
Right.
well as these are the items I would do right away as the new owner. I would
Mhm.
add insulation, I would add radiant foil, I would throw these bulbs away and put LED lighting in.
Right.
It seems silly to change out a light bulb when it's still working, but people don't realize how inefficient and how much they would save. And once you start to see the savings, now a true energy audit will come with a punch list of these are the items I recommend that you do. This is roughly about the cost of each one of these things. And usually like the first 2 or 3 things on the list are things that homeowners can do themselves. So they're
Right.
not actually hiring out for a contractor to come in and do these things. These are tasks that could be easily done by any DIY person.
I wish that I had some pictures of you with some equipment that you brought in, that the infrared scanner type thing, where you can see on the walls the thermograph. What do you call that?
Yes, yes. Yeah, so we have a FLIR camera that we've used for the last 18 years. We've gone through a few of them. They seem to improve over time in quality and resolution. But the camera sees heat and it translates that to colors on the screen. So
Right.
we can see where we've had clients in the past call us and say, we have a draft in the kitchen and we cannot track it down. We've changed out the windows, we've
Right.
added insulation in the attic. And when you walk through with the thermal camera can see those air leaks coming into the home. So we could pinpoint the draft in about 17 seconds
Wow.
versus, you know, it's tackling a problem scientifically rather than just throwing darts with a blindfold on.
Yeah, it's quite amazing what we can see in these recent years with the new technologies. And I know that in some states, energy audits are being required for new transactions, and some municipalities are offering the energy audits for free. So
Wow.
I would love to see that happening, in California as well.
Yeah, it's not only good for the investment into your home,
Right.
your primary investment,
Mhm.
but it's also um, the savings that you're going to see over time
Mhm.
helps the economy in general
Right.
because you're not throwing money away every single month to the
Yeah.
electric company. When you open that bill and you go, oh my goodness, it's
Yeah.
now up to $160. It's now $175. Well, it's going to keep going up
Right.
because that's just the direction that the Energy Commission is working on.
Mm.
Every year they ask for about a 13% increase and they give them about a 3 or 4% increase.
Yeah.
And we are just inundated with these bills. And if there's a
Right.
way just to break that cycle by making
Mhm.
a small investment,
Right.
saying, okay, I'm going to start with bulbs, then I may move on to insulation, or I may have somebody come out and inspect my duct work and seal
Mhm.
that up. If
Mhm.
I can get that sealed, make my house more comfortable, and then when the bill comes, you go, oh, I got it down to 125. I got it down to 75. Wow, a $65 electric bill. I mean, this is the direction you want to take it,
Yeah.
especially when everyone's watching their spending these days.
Yes. Yes. Well, thank you so much, Carl. It's quite informative. I hope that it's helping our audience to to learn that there are things that you can do before you put the solar panels on to reduce your energy bill and breathe some better quality indoor air. And
Yeah.
especially for us, we have fires coming through in the mountains, and it's great to have uh, good indoor air quality and energy efficiency.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And the thermal camera will show you a lot more than just air leaks.
Mm-hmm.
Thermal camera can show you electrical hotspots.
Right.
So if you have loose connections in your breaker box, those loose connections could be causing you higher electric bills. So if you haven't had the home inspected or looked at in, I would say over 2, 3 years,
Mm-hmm.
it's time to have a professional walk through the house and spend just a little bit of time with
Right.
you. And if they
Right.
have a thermal camera, they can show you where some of these energy leaks are.
Right.
And um, just one brief note when you were speaking to the wildfires that we have, if you haven't changed out your filters in
Right.
your forced air unit, you
Right.
should change them out now.
Mm-hmm.
Those people say, oh, I change them once a year, once every 6 months. You should do them once a quarter.
Yeah.
Um,
And
it
get
will
the better
improve.
ones.
Yes, get better ones, but don't get the best.
Mm-hmm.
They're sold on a MERV rating,
Mm-hmm.
ERV,
Mm-hmm.
and the higher the MERV, the tighter the weave on
Right.
furnace. They sell MERV 16s at Home Depot and Lowe's, and those
Right.
are at the top end of the scale.
Uh-huh.
A MERV 6 or a MERV 5 are the budget ones. I
Mhm.
wouldn't go for the budget ones because the holes are just too too
Yeah.
big on those.
Yeah.
And don't use the 16s because the 16s can make your air conditioning system ice up. Those 16s are made for commercial use only.
Oh, okay.
So you wanna aim for maybe a MERV 11 or a MERV 13,
Mhm.
and those are still the HEPA pleated
Right.
ones that catch a lot of the skin cell dust,
Mm.
or skin cells, dry skin cells,
Mhm.
dust, mites, etc.
Right.
And if you run your furnace a lot, definitely take that filter and throw it in the trash and get yourself a
Right.
new one and improve the air quality and lower the dust in the house.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
So, and you service not more than just mountain communities, but Southern California in general, correct?
Yes, we're working on a project right now in Malibu, and we go as far south as San Diego,
Oh,
Palm
wow.
Springs,
Okay.
and yes. And then in the past year or so, we've been up to the Bay Area
Oh, wow.
on a project up there for the environmental company. So
Did you?
we're all over.
Yeah. So how can people find you? Tell us how to find you or contact you.
Oh, probably the website is
Mm-hmm.
carlreese.com.
Mm-hmm.
Carl with a C, last name is REESE.com. And feel free to reach out to me if you just have a question, not necessarily work driven, or you want to
Right.
do it yourself. I always encourage do it yourselfers to tackle it if they
Mm-hmm.
can, save yourself even more money. I'm
Right.
happy to coach you over the phone, or if you live in Pine Mountain Club, I'm a full timer up here, so I'm happy to help.
That's great. Well, thank you so much, Carl. I'm very sure that people would appreciate what you had to show us today.
Oh,
So
well, thank
thank
you
you
for
so
having me.
much. Yeah, thank you.